My name's Zita, and I'm going to tell Amber what happened to me when I was a very young child. Um, about 3 years after war started, the Second World War, of course, um, my family moved from a small village in the Surrey area of London to the middle of London because uh, because a lot of the Italians who ran most of the cafes in London at that time were looked on as enemy agents and were interned on the Isle of Wight. Most of the London ones were. And my father, who was a restaurateur anyway, took over an Italian cafe in the middle of Knightsbridge. And we lived in a maisonette opposite the Natural History Museum on the Cromwell Road. And it was all very nice. And my sister, who was 2 years younger than myself, and I used to walk to school. That all stopped when major bombing started. Doodlebugs started arriving.
What did they call it?
They were called doodlebugs. They were unmanned machines that suddenly stopped and let off their bombs, and you didn't quite know. You heard them come in. They made a buzzing noise when they came in, quite loud. And then when the buzzing stopped, you didn't know where they were going to land and where the bomb was going to fall. This went on for a few months, and my mother decided that it really was too dangerous for us to stay in London, because she couldn't protect us that much, and we had to go to the shelters and spend time in darkness, or slept in the underground platforms. Um, and and so the government had a scheme where any children leaving London were taken to Liverpool Street Station. They had a label. They were given a bar of chocolate. They had to take their
Gas mask?
Yes, it was a gas mask. Yes, they had to take their gas mask and in the bar of chocolate and put on the train. Parents weren't told where their children were going in case of sabotage, but my mother insisted, gave me a postcard and said, "You must get the people that take you in to write their address on this postcard." And so we got on the train, my sister and I. My sister was really upset. I looked at it as a big adventure. But it's great fun.
Was your sister younger than you?
Yeah, she's 2 years younger, and I'm very much sort of mum's girl. And yeah, she had a little wee, but managed to cheer her up. And there were there were hundreds of children on this train. And
Were there anyone but children on the train?
there were some mothers seemed to go with the children, but mostly they were on their own. Yes. And it was a long train journey. I don't remember how many hours, but something like 6 or 7 hours. And we got to a small village on the Norfolk and Suffolk borders called Elling, which and we were just stood on the railway platform. And then people came up and picked the children. I'll have that one, or I'll have that one. And my sister and I were the last on the platform. Not surprising, actually, because she had fallen off a seesaw at our private school in Cambridgeshire that we were sent first of all, and had her arm in plaster. So she looked very pathetic as well as other than that, she cried most of the journey. Anyway, really cheerful older lady came and said in a very funny accent, because the East Anglian accent is very strange. And we were taken to, well, in the darkness, we didn't really see, but we had to walk to the station. Wasn't too long. And then we were sat down at a table and given tea and bites. And then we were taken up to the bedroom. The house was like a doll's house, with very square, with two windows at the top, two windows at the bottom, and a front door in between the two windows at the bottom. And there were only 4 rooms in this house. And the people who'd taken us in slept in one room. They had a teenage daughter who slept in the other room on a camp bed. And we were given a big double bed that the daughter had slept in before. There was no toilet in the house, so there was a potty under the bed. And it was all quite an extraordinary adventure. And they were extraordinarily nice people. The older lady, who actually I nicknamed them Part instead of Aunt. I said, "Oh, you're going to be Part," and Uncle was Pat. Just crazy, but he didn't seem to mind.
That's so cute.
And the George I didn't know.
Did you ask them like what's happening? Like, when am I going to see my parents?
No, or did you know? I mean, I was so enthralled with they had a large garden and chickens at the end of it, and I always found it such a big adventure that I sort of didn't really miss. I suppose really that because we'd been sent to this boarding school, as it were, this old school that we'd walked to before, in Kent, to a very large country house in somewhere Cambridgeshire. And so I was used not to being with my mother and father, but my sister not quite so much. And so, yes, I just sort of, I don't really worry about them too much. And but I did insist that the postcard was sent to my mother. And there was no telephone in the house. There was no electricity in the house. The whole thing was lit by gas lamps, oil lamps. Very beautiful they were, and gave a really nice mellow light. And we had candles to go to bed with, which we had to blow out occasionally. And the lady cooked in an outbuilding on oil cookers, like camping cookers. But she made the most marvelous meals, and we had lots of fresh vegetables, and things like rabbits, and yes, a whole lot of very fresh stuff. And there were apple trees in the garden. There were plum trees in the garden. There were greengage trees in the garden, and it was very nice.
How long were you there for?
About 5 years, because my parents had been bombed out of number 1, the flat in Cromwell Road. Then my father had taken a lease on a property behind South Kensington Station, and they were living in the basement of that. But then another bomb fell on, I think, somewhere near the underground station, and burst the water mains, so the cellar flooded, and so they couldn't live there. And they moved to, and there was nowhere for us to go back to in London because a lot of the houses were bombed.
So in that 5 years, how long was it before you were able to contact your parents?
My mother actually, because again, there was there was no petrol in the country. But my mother had a friend who actually had a car, and because he was a chauffeur, he managed to get enough petrol and drove my mother down to visit us. A heck of a long drive, of course, miles and miles. But she did come to visit us. And then at Christmas, she sent various presents. And she always sent boots and clothes for us because we were growing. So that she always sent out some clothes for us. And everything seemed to arrive. They were bonny, whole streets and, things were just falling down. And if you ever see any photographs of St. Paul's Cathedral, all around it is flattened. How that survived, I have no idea, but it was completely black. And that was the poorer part of London, of course, that area, and because they were aiming for the docks. So it was sort of everywhere, really. We know what it was really safe. And yes, the government just wanted to, make children, because a lot of the women, of course, were for the first time employed in factories and all sorts of things because the men were all conscripted. And of course, my mother was working with my father in the restaurant.
How far away was it from where you lived, or from where your old house was to where you were with?
What? Where we were sent to wait?
Yeah.
Oh, hundreds of miles.
Oh,
miles. Yes. Oops. It's right up country, from London, and it's on the Wash. It's taken a long way. Even nowadays, it takes about 5 hours to drive there. Yes. Anyway, we lived rather well. The only thing that was really boring was that we had to go to church every Sunday and sit very still during the sermons. But we were given peppermints to keep us quiet. And then, of course, we all went home for Sunday lunch. And then in the afternoons, we go on very long walks, on Sunday afternoons, and visit various friends or cousins or relatives of the family that I lived in. And that was very nice. And we always had high tea. And if you didn't eat your bread and butter, you didn't ever get any of the fruit salad. You had to eat your bread and butter before you got any pudding.
Do you stay in contact with them after you lose?
Very much so, yes. I was bridesmaid at my sister and I were bridesmaids at the daughter's wedding. She was called Alma, and she married a vicar called Vivian.
Oh.
And we kept in touch because there was a stile over the garden wall across a meadow, and there was a complete farm across there. And they had 2 children or 3 children, and we always went over the stile and played with the children in the yard, and we went birds nesting. We did some naughty things, and we played in the hay lofts, and by and large, it was just a great life.
How old were you when you went there?
When I went there, I must have been about 5. And I came back. I was 7 or 8. Yes. Yeah. Well, that was a very quiet part of the country. There was nothing there. It was just farming land, and the biggest town, I suppose, was Norwich, which didn't really have anything that anybody was interested in. There were no great ports on that side of the country.
Do you know how they chose the people?
No, I think
it was more like these people wanted to adopt some kids, temporarily.
Oh, no. I think they were off. I don't know whether they were paid or not. I don't think they were paid. I think they were just asked to do your duty to the king and country, to take in these poor children who would probably die if they stayed in London.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it was out of the goodness of their heart. But I must say that there were quite a lot of us that got off at that train station. But after 3 weeks, a whole lot had gone home again.
After 3 weeks?
Yes.
But you had stayed for years.
Yes, because
there was nothing to collect.
there was like, well, my mother hadn't got our father hadn't got any house to take us back to, and we were happy there. So it didn't really, I think it missed us, but I think it was and they missed quite a lot of our childhood. But it wasn't disastrous for us. But other children just hated it, and maybe they were older. Yeah.
I didn't have such a great kind of aunt. No, they did.
Yes, and we were accepted by all the rest of the family. Yeah. Yes. Even if I was naughty, then